Alright, let's start it. Ooh, Perfect Blue. Okay, so Perfect Blue at 98. A great movie, by the way. One of the greatest anime movies of all time. 98. I think this film is probably good enough to warrant a position a little bit higher, but it wouldn't be too much higher. It would only be 10, maybe 20 spots, I feel like. Um, But actually, Perfect Blue, it really is in that tier one of anime films with me, with a couple others. So maybe I think it could even go higher, maybe into that top 60, maybe even top 50. This film is honestly is that good to be around those positions. But yeah, for me, a little bit higher, but maybe not to an extreme degree. But yeah, I think public maybe underrating this film just a bit. A great mystery, great mystery. Slime, really? They're gonna put slime on here. Okay, okay. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy myself a couple isekais, but and this is one of the better ones. This is definitely one of the better ones, maybe in that top five-ish isekai, but honestly, it's not good enough to be on here. I'm sorry, it just isn't. If there's gonna be an isekai on here, it shouldn't be slime. It should be a different one. But hey, at least, and I guess, isekai, you got that representation in the top 100. But you don't deserve it. You do not deserve it. Big Dragon. Oh, Spirited Away. Spirited Away. Yeah, Spirited Away is a very good film. In a similar boat as Perfect Blue for me. I would also put this film slightly above Perfect Blue. So I guess that's accurate to the list. But again, I probably would put it a little bit higher, maybe in that 70 range ish. So yeah, I think they're underrating this one a little bit. I think this is definitely a top two at least Studio Ghibli film. So yeah, very good film. Very good film. Full Metal Alchemist. Okay. I assume this is the original, not Brotherhood. I haven't watched the original actually, but it's on the list. That's interesting to see. I don't know how good it is. Because I know some people actually really don't like the original, but some people are also good fans. So maybe this was helped by Brotherhood. I'm not sure. But Brotherhood's pretty good. Well, I guess we'll see later on. Nononbiori, let's go! 86. Okay, Nononbiori should be on the list. I agree with this. It deserves to be on the list. At 86, I mean, it's not too bad of a spot. I wouldn't put it that far from here, to be honest. So Nononbiori, a great spot. It's got such a bunch of great characters. Actually, really good, entertaining stuff. Okay, Higurashi, When They Cry. Okay, if I assume that they're including the second season, and I hope for them, not the third and fourth, because the third and fourth, I'm gonna be honest, they're not great. They're not great. If they include that, they shouldn't be anywhere near the list. Nowhere near. But if it's part one and two, just because that's the main part of When They Cry is season one and two. Then I can kind of understand it. I definitely feel like season two is a lot better. Season one is kind of providing you with the puzzle pieces, and then season two is actually, finishing the puzzle rather than just giving you the pieces. And it finishes for you. It just depends, obviously, how quickly you can kind of fix the pieces yourself throughout watching the show. But honestly, the first season is a little bit hard to get through. It's very repetitive. I can't lie. And to wait that long for a payoff can be a bit of a put off. I think the payoff is really good. But yeah, I think 85. It's not a bad spot to be fair. Maybe I'll put it slightly lower, but not by that much. I don't think. When They Cry, Kai, the second season, is really good. Is really good. So yeah, guess that's all I have to say. Welcome to the NHK. Okay. For me, honestly, a little bit early. This is a great dramatic show, also a comedy show about a depression. And honestly, I think this is a top tier anime. I think this should be a bit higher. I'm thinking maybe like 60s, 50s. Honestly, really good show. Welcome to the NHK. I would say a little bit underrated, underrated by Reddit here. Okay, Angel Beats. Angel Beats, similar to Higurashi, has a really good peak, has a really great peak. But honestly, I feel like the peak comes in at a very good time. It's like around the ending of the show, and I think you kind of have a more prolonged time of really good stuff in Angel Beats. Because I do think it kind of starts off slow, but I think overall Angel Beats is better than Higurashi, and I feel like deserves to, to be um to be higher. Doesn't have as much of that, that the Higurashi first season really brings it down for me, and for Angel Beats, the start doesn't bring it down as much, nearly as much as that season one for Higurashi. And honestly, maybe it could do with a little bit higher as well. Maybe it could do a little bit higher. Just I think the ending is just so memorable. People will come to remember this ending even decades from now, and it already has been quite a long time since this show came out. So, yeah, I think this could be a little bit higher, but not necessarily that much higher, because its average might not be quite as good as some of these others. Okay, summertime rendering. Honestly, I think this is recency bias. I don't think summertime rendering is good enough to warrant a spot on here. To be honest with you, if you're gonna put this on the list, then maybe you could get away with it in like a 95 or below. But for me, honestly, I don't think it quite makes that list. I think it gets close. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, I think the show is a little bit overrated, and some recency bias is coming into this. I think near the end, it drops off quite a bit. The start is so good. The start of the show just gets you so pumped and so interested in what's going to happen next. But no, for me the drop off is a little bit too considerable. But this isn't a terrible pick. Just yeah, a bit high for me. Bit high. Is that? It's the Avalanche's Shadow. Okay, if you're going to put an isekai on here, like you probably already know from a video I released the other day about the best isekai, I do think this is the best isekai. So I think this one does deserve a spot on here. I'd probably say, but maybe a little bit lower. Not too much to be fair. I think this is still a really good show. I feel like it's complex in a lot of ways that people aren't necessarily aware because it does have a lot of tropes going on, but kind of complexities around those tropes, and just in its some places in its writing, I think it's definitely very good. So I think it warrants a spot on the list, but maybe not quite 77. But yeah, that's somewhat fair, I suppose. Is that My Hero Academia? Yes, it is. Okay, I've only watched 10 episodes of My Hero Academia, but I'm not gonna lie, I fell asleep at some point during that period. I got quite bored of this one. And don't get me wrong, shonen isn't one of my favorite genres to begin with. I don't think shonens are that great consistently, even though I think some are absolutely top tier. But for me, this one it's just not it for me. I get maybe season 2, 3 onwards can be better, but for me, season 1 was not great. And if there's other seasons of similar quality, I fear that this just simply doesn't deserve a spot on here. And for me, for what I've seen so far, it doesn't deserve it. So for me, I would say overrated, personally. This is Licorice Recoil. Okay, Licorice Recoil. I've only watched 3 episodes of this because I'm watching this with a friend at the moment. But honestly, I think this might be another recency bias pick. Um, it's about pretty similar world to the real world, let's say, and there's these women that are kind of these like assassins, let's say, part of this very big, important organization, and they're sort of their military force. I guess there's only females for some reason, which can be a bit fun and definitely is used as a tactic to get more viewers in for this show because everybody loves females apparently, um, or find them attractive rather, because anime audience tends to be more male than female on average. So that's probably the tactic there, and I don't necessarily have a huge problem with that. But then again, you look at the main character, she for some reason can just dodge bullets just like whenever she wants, and nobody else can, and it plays in a world that's kind of similar to ours. Seems a bit random when nobody else can do that. So far for me, I've not really enjoyed the action. Some of the plot points have been interesting so far, but does it deserve a spot on the list? For me, it probably doesn't. And if you're gonna put it, it should be in at the 90s, not 75, bit high for me. So yeah, I'll say it's a bit overrated and recency bias. Not the CGI, it's the CGI. I haven't watched this show, so I can't say whether it deserves the spot, but CGI, I can't handle it. Okay, Fate Zero, not sorry, Fate Stay Night. Fate Stay Night, okay, I think Fate Zero is going to be on this list if Fate Stay Night is on here. So that's good, I think Fate Zero should definitely be higher than Fate Stay Night. But does Fate Stay Night deserve a spot on here? Honestly, I don't think Fate Stay Night is that good. I think it takes away from some of the stuff that was actually good about Fate Zero. Like in Fate Stay Night, you only see the perspective of one character, as opposed to Fate Zero, where you see it's almost like a battle royale. It is a battle royale, but you also get to see the perspectives of all the big dogs, all the important characters in that battle royale. Which gives you just a very unique perspective in a show, which you don't usually get in Fate Stay Night. They take that away. They bring you back to one person for the most part, and it's just a lot less interesting. I think a lot of the characters that do reappear in Fate Stay Night from Fate Zero are either kind of twerked with to a point, or tweaked with, not twerked. Okay, tweaked with a little bit to not be as interesting and stuff like that. I don't think the writing is good. I think the plot isn't as interesting. Honestly, I don't think it quite should be on the list for me personally. I don't think it's that good. I'll say this is a bit overrated in my opinion. Okay, Psychopaths. This is a pretty complicated one, to be honest. Psychopaths, if we're including season 2 and 3, Psychopaths should definitely not be on here. If we're just looking at season 1, I think you can just about get this on the list. I think it's understandable why it's on 70. If we're just looking at season 1, I think it could be understandable because Psychopaths explores a lot of interesting themes, a lot of interesting philosophical themes on, even political themes on why or how a country should be ran based on what ethics, etc., etc. So it's all very interesting. Don't get me wrong, but I do think Psychopath is just a bit wordy, which I guess is a thing of the past now. That's something that used to happen a lot back in the day, where you have some of these wordy shows a lot more commonly than now. I feel like. Correct me if I'm wrong, of course. And I think Psychopath suffers from that as well. I think it's a bit wordy. I think it has some characters that kind of lack a purpose. I think sometimes a show explains things too thoroughly to a point where, it almost acts as if you're not very smart. So ultimately, 70, I would say a little bit high, but I can see it. I think it explores a lot of really interesting themes, but for me, it can be really annoying to get to the interesting parts sometimes. So yeah, I guess I'll say it's maybe a little bit overrated. Assassination Classroom. Okay. Been a very, very long time since I've seen the show. Should this be on the list? I think it definitely can be. I think it should be probably more in the rear end, like your 80s, 90s, if you're gonna put this on the list. But honestly, a pretty good show and a very wide range of characters to enjoy as well. Pretty good show. But yeah, I think by Reddit, a little bit overrated. I think it's probably because of how popular the show got at the time. Um, but yeah, I don't think it's quite 66 quality. Bleach, there you go. Other than My Hero Academia, this is your first very big shonen on the list so far. I say first very big shonen. Obviously, it's a lot bigger than My Hero Academia was. I would say, it's part of that big three together with Naruto and One Piece when they were all airing at the same time. But honestly, I would say, at the rear end of the show, it kind of started to peter off. I don't think it was quite as good near the end, Bleach. And even if it covered some interesting things, I think it kind of didn't stick within the genre that Bleach should stick into. Looking at that final season of Bleach, part of the original, and then recently they've been making the final season, if you will, the final big arc in Bleach, and they've released a season 1 and 2 of that now. and I feel like just the pacing is just way too quick. I'm not a big fan. I get that a lot of people are really, really like the new seasons, and they have some really good animation in there. Don't get me wrong, but no, I feel like the pacing is just way too quick, and I do not like the plot either as that much. So even though we're getting to a climax on the Bleach story finally in anime, I am just not a big fan. I'm sorry. Bleach is one of my favorite anime of all time. This is the anime that I grew up with practically, but I am not happy with how they've adapted the final arc so far. So yeah, I wouldn't say it deserves to be on the list regardless. But yeah, it's probably on here probably because of a name value as well. It just has that Titanic name, Bleach. Not quite as much as some other shonen that will probably be on the list as well, considering this is on here. But yeah, I would say Bleach. Overrated by Reddit here. Is that okay? Snafu coming in at 63. Not too bad of a spot to be fair. I think Snafu is one of the best romances that you can watch. 63 for that reason. I probably would say maybe a little bit underrated. Maybe put that a little bit higher. I would say can definitely do with a little bit higher. But I mean, 63 is not a bad spot. You know, when you look at top anime ever, 63 is not a bad spot. So I'm not too unhappy with it. Not too unhappy with it. But yeah, I think they got it a little bit wrong. This definitely has an interesting spin on the romance genre with the main character specifically. He's just such a very interesting character, proactively um, deciding the plot really just affects the plot so much in very unusual ways that you don't usually see in a romance show. So I think very interesting show and very philosophical as well. So yeah, very good stuff. Cruel. Spy X Family. Okay. I would say if it's just season one, I think this position is actually not too far off. But if we're counting season two, then I'm not sure it can be this high. Yeah, I think realistically, if you take season two into account, this has to be on the rear end of this list. It can't be in the middle. It can't be at 60. But if it's just season one, then sure. Not honestly, 60. I'm not unhappy with that pick. I don't think it's too bad. But yeah, season two. I'm sorry. It just stalemates a little bit. It just doesn't. The show doesn't really get anywhere. So yeah, for me, I don't think the character cast, the cast of characters isn't good enough to kind of maintain that high quality when not that much is going on. So no, season two for me, not that great. And considering that, I guess I'll say it's overrated here. Ooh, Hyoka. Okay, Hyoka is actually a really interesting show. It's listed as, you know, another romance, school romance, but honestly, season one doesn't really include any romance. And there is only one season, so maybe a bit of a problem here. I'd probably say because there's only that one season that the show's probably a little bit overrated on this list. But honestly, it is a very interesting spin on this whole school romance type show. With the whole mysteries that are going on, it's very interesting. I do think some of the mysteries aren't that interesting for me. Um, but the sound is just incredible. This show definitely looks great and it sounds impeccable. I just love how the voices work in this show. It's you don't really see it very often in anime done to this level and in this specific way as well. So I think it's a very interesting school anime. Very good, very good. I don't think they got it too far off. Okay, Cyberpunk. Cyberpunk won Anime of the Year when it came out, and it started amazing. It looks amazing. The animation and art just it definitely stands out, definitely. But honestly, I think it kind of goes downhill near the end of the show, and I don't like the ending. I think endings are very important. And considering that, I do think this should be on the rear end of the list, if at all. Yeah, I would say probably should be around the 90s for me. Cyberpunk, I don't like how it ended, I'm gonna be honest. But I think it's definitely worth a shot, and I think it starts incredibly interesting. So yeah, I think it's a really good show, but for me, I didn't like where it went near the end, so yeah, a little bit overrated in my opinion. Okay, Demon Slayer at 47. Yeah, Demon Slayer is some of the best animation you'll ever see in anime. I think this if you call Demon Slayer peak animation, there's not many people that I can passionately tell you that you're wrong. Demon Slayer, I would say the quality goes a bit downhill. I'm not saying the animation necessarily, just Demon Slayer as a show goes downhill in season 3 and season 4. The latest season one was only eight episodes. I'm not sure if you want to call that a season, but for the sake of it, I'm calling it a season. I think they are just not as good as season 1 and 2, unfortunately. And season 1 and 2, they weren't even that impressive writing wise, anyways. I was not that interested in the plot. So not necessarily. I'm just meaning in comparison to shows that are going to be around this place of the list, right? And then together with the fact that I think season 3 and 4 kind of fall off significantly. Um, I think if you're going to put this on the list, there should be again around that 90 list. And then if you really want to, weigh the animation, maybe get into that 80s, maybe 70s. But 47 for me is just straight up too high. I get that I'm a bit of a shonen hater, but yeah, if it was more consistent, I could see this a little bit more. I wouldn't have kept it at four. I wouldn't have seen it at 47 anyways. But yeah, it went downhill a bit for me, so I can no longer really imagine 47 as a reasonable spot. I think it's a bit too high, definitely. So yeah, there's my take. Oshinoko. Honestly, not a bad spot for Oshinoko. I do think, however, that sort of the who's best girl aspect of the anime kind of takes away from it. Kind of takes away from the drama. Um, so I will say that. I think when I originally watched it, I thought it was better. I had like a bit of a recency bias on it, if you will. I didn't have that clarity on the show, but looking back at it, I do realize that I don't think it's quite as good as I thought it was when I first finished it. This spot isn't too bad though. I think 46 is it's not far off where I would put it. I think it's pretty accurate. So 46, honestly, not a bad spot. Not a bad spot. Pretty good spot there from Reddit. Very good job for this one. But yeah, I think it could be even better, I guess. Okay, Bunny Girl Senpai 45, probably a bit high, but it is pretty good romance. Kind of has some similarities with Bakemonogatari, but this one's a little bit less about symbolism, and probably a little bit more about emotional moments, I suppose. But yeah, Bunny Girl Senpai, the title might not make it look like it, but it's actually a really good romance show. I definitely recommend you go watch it. If you do like romance shows, of course. School romance, as per usual, though they don't spend a lot of time in school, so take that into account. Yeah, a pretty good show. 45 is a bit high, though, let's be honest. I think it's another one of those where I think for me it might just barely nudge into the list at around the 90s, but no further than that, probably. So, yeah. Probably a fair amount overrated here by Reddit, in my opinion. Probably because of how popular the main girl is. Dragon Ball. Okay. There we go. A very iconic show. That's exactly why this is here. Realistically, based on today's standards, this isn't gonna be on here. Especially when you look at Dragon Ball Super, if we're including that here. Series called Dragon Ball. I think it's pretty much including the whole canon franchise at least. So yeah, probably shouldn't be on here, but it has some iconic moments. And I think paying respects to it is fair. It's fair. I understand. Realistically, shouldn't be here, but yeah. Okay, Chainsaw Man at 41. Okay. Don't get me wrong. Or maybe that's an awkward time to stop. Okay, whatever. Chainsaw Man, pretty good. Another shonen. I will say though, when I was watching it, I kind of felt like it was similar to Isekais season 1. But I do think Chainsaw Man actually season 1 is better than Jujutsu Kaisen season 1, in my opinion. That being said, season 1, it wasn't really screaming out it should be at 40th place. I think this is a common trend now with shonen that I think they're overrated a bit here. I think similar to Bunny Girl Senpai, it probably should be around the 90s. If it's gonna be here, maybe it can get up to here if you get that second season, because there's only been one season so far of Chainsaw Man. There hasn't been that much content on it so far, so especially with Shonen, it's kind of like let them cook. They're cooking, but it's just a raw chicken at the moment. It isn't quite cooked yet. So maybe if you get that second season, you can get a lot closer to this point. But for me, 41 definitely too high for the moment. Bit overrated. Bit overrated. Okay, One Punch Man. Okay, okay, okay. Don't get me wrong. It's probably the best anime that you could suggest to someone that has never watched an anime since Pokemon or something. But for being objective, 38 is probably too high for it. I think One Punch Man definitely a great anime, great comedy, great action, and it has to. I think it definitely should be on this list. Don't get me wrong, but 38 is just a bit high. It's just a little bit too high for me. That's all I'm gonna say. Just a little bit overrated. Just a little bit too high. Iconic face. Fruits Basket. I've only seen one season of it so far, and I stopped watching it because I wasn't really enjoying it. Should it be on the list? Maybe. If it's gonna be on the list, it's gonna be another one of those where it's in the 90s. But honestly, personally, based on season one, I probably wouldn't have it on the list. It gets pretty close, but I wasn't a big fan. Important to take into account that this show is typically meant for females or feminine people. But yeah, so maybe that's why I didn't like it because I'm not quite on that spectrum that strongly. So I maybe that's affected my opinion of it. I'm not sure. I just naturally don't like it or something like that. But yeah, I just thought it was a bit yappy to be honest. I think a little bit yappy, a little bit overly dramatic about things that aren't that dramatic. But yeah, I haven't finished it, so maybe if I watch season 2 and 3, my opinion would change. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Not sure. Odd Taxi. Now this one I think is really good. I think you could even say it could be higher. I think it's a really good show. I get that the animal thing is a bit of a put off. All the characters look like animals. But honestly, this is a great mystery anime, and I've never seen an anime kind of explain the mystery as well throughout the story as this does. It does such a good job. I think it's really entertaining. It's not that complex. It's very easy to follow. And it's one of those shows where you look at the title, you start watching it, and you think maybe this is a show meant for people that kind of are trying to figure things out a little bit more. People that are always like saying, if you don't understand it, that's just you don't understand it. You shouldn't have an opinion on it. But no, this is actually really easy to understand. The way this story plays can be understood by anyone. It's honestly that good. So it kind of retains complexity, but also it can be understood by anyone. So I think that definitely has to be given its props to. So yeah, Odd Taxi I think is absolutely impeccable. Probably should be a little bit higher, I would say. Not that much, don't get me wrong. 36 is still really good, but yeah. Okay, Fate Zero 35. Not too bad, I would say, honestly. I think 35 is probably about right. Fate Zero, I mentioned earlier. I think it's such a unique show. That whole Battle Royale aspect, and it came out way before Battle Royale was got that big in the gaming industry. So extra props for that. And it's some great action, and for its time, probably has one of, if not the best animation. I think it was 2007. So that deserves some credit as well, I think. And it holds up to this day. Not quite as the best animation anymore, of course, considering the same studio now does Demon Slayer, and that's obviously got better animation. But this still is really good animation, and has some great plot. Great plot. Not a great episode one. A little bit confusing, but yeah, really good. Okay, Haikyuu. Okay, Haikyuu. I have a hot take on Haikyuu. I think sports anime in general is hard to pull off, and I think Haikyuu is just another example where I don't really like it that much. I watched season 1 and season 2 so far. I haven't watched anything past that, but season 1 was pretty good, and I wouldn't quite put it on the list even based on season 1. And then season 2 came around. In some ways, it was a little bit repetitive, and especially the biggest problem. I don't really think I have to deep dive into the show too much. The biggest problem It's just the matches a lot of the time will take too long, and you'll have matches that aren't that important that they're covering, and they take up a couple episodes. It's just, yeah, I think matches, too many matches that are being totally covered. Just, just roll the highlights for some of the matches that we don't really care about. You don't have to introduce a bunch of characters in the moment itself to just play against a team and you beat that team and then, let's say you never see that team again. Maybe you see one of the characters at one point during the show, but for the most part, they're not relevant. Then I just frankly don't really care that much. Just, yeah, I think this show can just be paced a little bit quicker at certain moments. So yeah, that's all I say. I think this is honestly, in my opinion, one of the most overrated shows I've seen. Okay, 33 Naruto, and it's showing us the most iconic part of Naruto, the Rock Lee Gaara fight. Very iconic. Honestly, when we think about old shonens, if we're gonna put one on here, I think Naruto is probably the one you get away with the most, just because in a lot of ways it is very good. But unfortunately, it kind of has an old school pacing sometimes, and at other times, it's got that inconsistent pacing. You've got the whole flashback meme in Naruto, the amount of flashbacks, and usually there's this one. What is it? It's like it's not a slide, whatever you call it, but a place where Naruto would sit back in the day, basically, and it just flashback towards that all the time, and Shippuden as well. Shippuden has a lot of issues, man. It kind of does go downhill a little bit. It goes into some really good fights, don't get me wrong, so it kind of distracts you from some of the issues that are in that show. But yeah, another one where it's probably too high. I think Naruto probably shouldn't be on the list, but if you're gonna put one of those 2000s or before shonens on here, I think Naruto, I say 2000s, I'm talking about early 2000s, before 2010 shonen, or started airing before then anyways, then I think this one would be it, but just has some clear execution errors that kind of make it fall short from its potential. So yeah, there you go. A silent voice. Okay, I will say the fact that this is this much higher than than what is it called? Spirited Away is a little bit absurd. It should be very similar. They're like this far apart. Realistically, I put them very, very close. A silent voice. If you're gonna put it above it, I mean, I don't necessarily have a problem with that. I think they're very close. If you just put one above the other, I'm not gonna have a problem with that. A silent voice though, 31, I would probably say a bit high. I prefer around, the 50s and 60s, like I said earlier about Spirited Away. Interesting we haven't seen Your Name yet though, because that's another top tier film, and I think that means that that's going to be above this one. But yeah, A Silent Voice, a really good film. Don't get me wrong, but I think maybe just a little bit high. Not that much high, not that much higher than I would put it, but just that little bit. Just that little bit. Really good film about depression and very realistic. Well, there we go. You get Your Name straight away. They're right next to each other as usual. They're very much compared because of how closely they came out and how closely they're critically acclaimed, I guess, if that makes sense. But yeah, 31 and 30, Your Name, I do think it's maybe just that little bit better than A Silent Voice, but if you have it the other way around, that's totally understandable. But yeah, again, really good film. I would probably say 30 is a bit high, but not too much, not too much. Just say exact same thing with The Silent Voice. Very, very good films. 29 Jujutsu Kaisen. Okay, alright. Again, it's another shonen. You know what I'm gonna say. But you know what I'm actually gonna say though? I have been watching season 2 recently, and I watched the movie in between season 1 and 2. And it's been pretty good. Don't get me wrong. So the action has been really, really good. Some of the animation has been really, really good. And I think this could squeeze on the list. For like every single show that I've said probably shouldn't be on the list. I've said that about Demon Slayer as well. I'm pretty sure because of season 3 and 4. I said about Naruto, Bleach, Dragon Ball, and only one I haven't said it for is Chainsaw Man. I think. There might be one more, I'm not sure, but Jujutsu Kaisen season 2 is actually really good, and the movie was really good. Season 1 I think was a little bit overrated. Sorry, no. I think it definitely was overrated. But season 2 in the movie was actually pretty good in my opinion. So I think it definitely could squeeze into the list. But again, 30 or 29 rather. Definitely too high. Definitely too high. Yeah, really epic action, really epic. 86 at 28. Okay, don't get me wrong. 86 is really good. It definitely should be on the list. 28 though. 28, a little bit high. I think, look at the main character, for example. He kind of, he's not the most original character. So the story does have a lot of emotional moments, a lot of very strong moments. 86. I think it's a very good show. Definitely should be on this list. 28 though, maybe a bit high. I think maybe around the 50s would be a good spot. Similar, to be fair, the films we just saw with Your Name and A Silent Voice. But yeah, 28 again, just a bit high, for 86. But it's not terrible. Don't get me wrong, not a terrible listing. Cowboy Bebop, have not seen it, but I hear great things about it, so I'm sure this is not too bad of a position for it. One Piece. I haven't watched One Piece. It's 1,000 episodes. I'm sure you can excuse me on this one, definitely, out of all the ones. But yeah, I get a feeling that's not a terrible position. On the other hand, Konosuba at 22. This is actually insane. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I thought, we saw Eminence Shadow at what, 76 or something? And I thought, surely from now we're not gonna see an isekai, and then, we're rendering the last 20s, and we still hadn't seen an isekai in between, so surely there would be no more isekais. And suddenly at 22, Konosuba comes in. I'm not gonna lie, this thing, it shouldn't be on the list. It's really funny. Do not get me wrong. It's a really funny show. But really, Konosuba, top 100 anime of all time. It's got some good comedy, got some good fantasy. It's got some good animation, depending on what season it is, because it's been changing studio a little bit. 22, really? Like, you can maybe squeeze it on the list, but honestly, it just straight up wouldn't be on the list for me. It's a good show. Don't get me wrong. It's a good show. And it now has 3 seasons of Konosuba. But no, and no. Just a hard no. Very, very overrated by Reddit. Yeah, definitely. Maybe because of Megamine. I'm not sure. And it's Death Note with the most iconic scene in the show. Death Note is actually really good. Obviously you got that bit at the end, the last like 13 episodes or so, 10 episodes ish, that clearly are not as good. It's not even close, but it's just so good until that happens. You all know what I'm referring to if you've seen the show. And once that happens, it gets a lot worse. But it was just before that, it was so good. I would probably put it at like a 9.5 rating before that. So honestly, even though it's obviously nowhere near as good for the last 10 episodes, I don't think it affects it that badly. And important to note, I think the ending's actually really good as well. So it's really important that the ending kind of masks that last bit as well. If you get a good ending, I think that's really important for a show. And yeah, I think for those reasons, 20 Death Note. Honestly, no complaints. No complaints. I mean, yeah, I really thought they had us. They could have do it again. Konosuba in the 20s. And don't get me wrong, I do think Re:Zero is better than Konosuba. But really? Really? Like, I think this show is overrated, don't get me wrong. I didn't think it was this overrated. Like, holy. Re:Zero at 17, and Isekai 17th best anime, according to Reddit. Yeah, no. Don't get me wrong, it has some interesting concepts. It has the whole concept of, when you die, you respawn in the fantasy world. at a previous checkpoint, if you will. And it's interesting at the start, but it gets pretty repetitive. It gets really pretty repetitive, and sometimes they don't even die at relevant points in terms of progressing the plot. And that's not necessarily required, but if the dying is going to become repetitive, then don't do it, you know? And then the second season comes, and it it approaches that part of the series way better, but then it doesn't quite cover the type of plot that I was looking for. I was looking for the plot to progress, and it doesn't really in season two either. Ultimately, I think you could sneak this into the list, right? You could sneak it in there in the 90s, but no, not for me. I don't think it's even on the list. I'll just put it that way. I don't think they should even be on the list, to be honest. Overrated. Very overrated. Made in Abyss. Okay, Made in Abyss is actually incredible. It looks beautiful. It has some great music. A little bit off-putting with the character designs because they all look like kids, right? And a little bit unusual compared to anime usual art, but no problems with that. Um, I hear season two because I haven't seen season two. I hear season two gets a little bit weird, and that definitely puts people off, and I definitely understand that. But I think season two is incredible. Season one is incredible. Season two, I hear, is also incredible, even if it's a little bit weird at moments. It is still top tier anime, definitely. Great adventure. 16, no real gripes with that spot. Not a bad spot. I maybe would say maybe oh sorry. Maybe a little bit high, I guess I would say. But yeah. Okay, and then at 15 now, apparently we have Mushoku Tensei. I mean, I thought we had it, you know. Konosuba 20s, ReZero, what was it, 17? And now 15, Mushoku Tensei. I mean, you are trolling me. How many isekais are we putting on here? Like, I thought I thought we were done after like Slime. No, sorry. Abyss of Shadow. I thought we were done after that. Mushoku Tensei 15. Seriously? Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. Season 1 Core 2 is actually really good. And it would make my list, definitely. Core 2 would definitely make my list. Even when you include Core 1 of season 2, I think that's also pretty good. I think it still makes my list. But season 1, part 1, it's just it's not that good. Right? When you actually look at the positives of the show, the positives aren't that good that scream, you should be on the list. You should be on the list. The animation is incredible. Looks beautiful. But characters in the first season, it's whatever. You know, it's just whatever. And it's just weird. And it kind of, the way it tells the story to me, kind of normalizes some of the actions to me. I feel like sometimes when you watch a show, you can tell when the show is trying to tell you something is normal when something isn't. And it kind of shows you certain characters doing certain things that you don't need to see. I don't think you'd lose anything. In fact, I think you'd gain from not seeing it. And then, in some ways, it just shows you stuff in a way where it's almost like trying to tell you that that's normal, or it's not that weird. And I get that that there's a part of that where it's trying to just tell you that that's normal in the world, but I feel like, and maybe this is my misinterpretation as well, but I feel like it's trying to make it seem like it's not that big of a deal. The way it's told, it's almost implying it, even if it's that's not the intention. For me, that's kind of how I absorbed it, just with how nonchalant it was. It just didn't care what it was showing. And for me, some of the characters at certain ages, the certain things that they do, it's just a little bit inappropriate. And in certain examples, I prefer if they just hinted towards something happening rather than just showing us. But regardless, I don't even think it matters. That's the thing. That part of the show doesn't even matter. Just season one, core one, just the plot itself. It's okay. It's just whatever. Like, I don't think it's as good as Konosuba. I don't think it's as good. Not that I just like season one in Mushoku Tensei. I mean, core one. I don't think it's as good as Konosuba. No Examination Shadow. Nice Overlord. I mean, Slime. I, I don't see it. I don't see it. I think if it excludes season one, I think this would definitely be on the list. I can definitely see this on the list. I think I'm absolutely fine with this on the list. I would probably put it on the list. But when you include that core one, I probably wouldn't even have it on the list. And if I do, sneak in maybe at the late 90s. Not at 15. Not at 15, my guy. Bocchi the Rock. Okay. I have a huge problem with this. I have a huge problem with this. I think the show is so overrated. I get it, right. And the main character, so relatable to certain people, right? To me, I guess a little bit, but not really that much. Pretty relatable main character, sure, for some people. And they tell what she's feeling like in a very unique way. I get it. Yeah, it's very cool, very interesting, very unique, right? But let's not act like just because of that, that all of a sudden the show is just a masterpiece. Like it's just good, right? And it's nothing special. Can we just agree on that? It's just really not that special. It has one really fun character that everyone likes, the one with the blue hair. She's fun, right? But it's not a deal breaker. It's not turning the show into a masterpiece or anything. It's not an expert in comedy. It's not some fun slice of life. Cool. Yeah, not bad. Pretty good. Alright. Should it be on the list? No. Shouldn't be on the list. Shouldn't be. That's my opinion. I think this is so overrated. So overrated. Watch it wrong. I don't get it. I don't get it. Nope. I think people might just in love with cute little girls or something. That has to be it. That has to be it. I don't get it. Mob Psycho 100. Mob Psycho is actually a really good show. I don't quite like it as much as other people do, so I definitely wouldn't have it on here. But I definitely have it on the list. I'm just going from the last one. Mob Psycho definitely on the list. I don't think it's quite as good as people think, just because it has that little bit of like comedy to it, and I think it's this weird mix of comedy and serious, and I don't think it mixes as well as people say it does, I guess, but it's still a very good show. I think Reigen is an incredible character. I think he creates the show. He's the driving force of the show, pretty much. And yeah, it has some pretty good character development and everything, character writing. But yeah, a bit of weird mix of shonen comedy, slice of life, a bit of a weird mix. I think it's a bit of a jack of all trades, but an expert at none for me. That's that's my opinion on the show, but I still think it's really good. Just a bit overrated in my opinion. I thought I was gonna say Naruto there. Vinland Saga is absolutely incredible. Vinland Saga number 10. No real problems with this spot. I did prefer season 1 over season 2, but I still think season 2 is really good. Yeah, Vinland Saga really good, really good. I no real big problems with this pick. 10 is a good spot. Okay, there it is. Fullmetal Alchemist. Did I even say that correctly? Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. At number 9. A lot of people have always had this at number 1 for the past like 2 decades, I swear. Not even sure if it's been out for that long. We'll just say the past decade. But yeah, I've always thought it was not quite as good as people said it was. I think people have always seen it as a safe option in terms of people tend to not think Brotherhood is the best anime. People usually disagree on what is the best, but Fullmetal Alchemist kind of has that consistent second or third place, let's say, and that's eventually turned into people just saying Brotherhood is the best anime. I feel like that's kind of what's happened, is that there's no real people that have issues with Brotherhood, so it's ended up, as you know, at least always number 1 or number 2 highest rated anime on websites like My Anime List. So definitely a great show, but I've said that it's overrated. I think it starts very slow. I think it starts with some episodes that are pretty irrelevant. I think some of the irrelevant episodes are also really interesting. People always remember the episode about the whole dog thing, if you remember that one. I think it was like episode 3 or something, I'm not sure. Yeah, show starts a bit slow for me. It definitely gets a very, very good payoff, but I think there's some other shows that we've already seen and some shows we've yet to see that just do a better job than Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. Yeah, I would say a little bit overrated, but yeah, I guess it's not the most overrated that I've seen, like Bishoku Tensei and Bocce the Rock. So yeah, yeah, I think Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood definitely overrated. But yeah, definitely should be, you know, top top 60 or something, top 70 at least, somewhere around there. The Monogatari series. It's an interesting one. I haven't completed this one, but it's really good at some points, not as good at some other points. Some weird ecchi at some points in the series. Like Kitsune Monogatari, I really like Kitsune Monogatari because it covered the story of Shinobu. But I don't know, it's just kind of edgy at random moments. I think it has some great symbolism. I think it drags on sometimes, Monogatari. I think it's pretty good. I think 8 might be pushing it a little bit, but it is honestly very, very good. And I think it definitely should be, in that top 50, top 50-ish. Neon Genesis Evangelion. Now this is a top tier show. Let me tell you. Yeah, I think this is definitely 7. Not a real problem with that. Top 7 is not bad. I think maybe this would even be like number 1 for me. Top 5 sounds about right. Neon Genesis Evangelion is so good. It's just so good. It lives up to the name. It's not as easy to absorb as like an otaxi, if you will. But if you get it, you get it, and it's not the most complicated show necessarily. There's some things that are complicated about it, but some other things that if you just pay attention to the characters that you should understand. Because the characters itself themselves aren't that complicated. It's just the underlying meaning of things, and there's some philosophy about depression and daddy issues and all that underlying stuff of people, just that most people um aren't quite as good as you might think as well. Just like yourself as well. So you're not quite as good as you think, and not quite as bad as you think. Let's say if you're down in the dumps. So. This is all about exposing people's good parts about them and their bad parts. It's a very realistic show in that sense, even though it's a mecha anime, basically, anyways. So yeah, Neon Genesis Evangelion, a very good show. Has some great movies as well. Yeah, just top tier, top tier, top tier writing. Love is War. Okay, it's not obviously it's not. It shouldn't be above Neon Genesis Evangelion, but Kaguya-sama Love is War is probably maybe a little bit contested, but it's probably the best romance that's come out in the last decade at least. So it makes sense that it's up here. It shouldn't be up here quite at number 6, but it is very, very good, and I wouldn't put it like that much lower. I feel like top 30-ish is definitely fair for Love is War. So very, very good show. Yeah, especially if you're younger, if you're still in school, this will feel a lot more relatable as well. I'm getting a little bit older, so it's a little bit past my time. Hunter x Hunter. I haven't seen this, but I hear it's incredible. I haven't seen this either. I cannot comment. Buela Magi Madoka Magica. No comment. Seems to be a bunch of little girls though. A little bit weird. Attack on Titan. Another shonen that I haven't seen, but I hear it's incredible. So I'm sure this is not far from the truth. Steins Gate, again, I haven't seen this. I need to watch this show. I need to watch the show. I hear it's pretty good, so I gotta watch this. So yeah, can't say if it's in the right spot. Frieren at number 1. Beyond Journey's End. Realistically, probably some recency bias. It hasn't come out that long ago now, and I think it overtook Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood for like number 1 average rating for my anime list. But to be fair, it's not gonna be that far from here. You know, like it's gonna be like at least top 30. Frieren for me should be like top 30. Yeah, very very good show. Number one probably a bit high, but I don't have a huge problem with this. I don't have a huge problem with this. So yeah, there we go. Reddit, not too bad. I think mostly struggled with shounen and isekai in terms of being objective, but there are some good ones in there. I think it's very important that you still get stuff like Neon Genesis Evangelion at number 7. You get them pretty high still, so not that far from the truth from some of the more complex shows. You also got the Monogatari series in there. It's a very complex show, so I think we got some good all-around representation, which makes sense for a list like this. So yeah. Anyways, that's gonna be me. It's gonna be me done. My hair doesn't want to stick in one place for some reason. Um, but yeah, we found out that I think a lot of shows are overrated. Basically, that's pretty much what we would take away from that. But yeah, thank you all for watching, and we'll see you later.